guys, Dietitians of Dallas here with this week's Food for Thought. And today I want to talk about intermittent fasting. You know it, you love it. I don't know why you love it. I personally would not want to feel hungry for half of the day, but unfortunately, this is a diet that has gained a lot of popularity and still has a lot of momentum behind it. So I want to talk about the dangers of that. Of course, anytime we start a big fad diet or we hear about a fad diet, there's always going to be something behind it that's not good for us and not healthy, because typically it's something that is unnatural. So intermittent fasting, I'm sure many of you know, it's typically when you limit your eating window to like an 8-hour block or a 12-hour block. There's different types that you may see out there. But essentially, this diet started or gained popularity after a study was published that did intermittent fasting in morbidly obese pre-diabetic males. So essentially what happened was, yes, they cut out a big chunk of day of eating and they noticed improvement in their weight and in their response to their insulin. That can be expected if you have someone who is morbidly obese and you're taking out a chunk of time that they're eating, because there's a large amount of calories that are taken out as well. So it's not that the body magically knew, oh, from 12 to 5, I burned fat more, or whatever that window was. It essentially was that, yes, that amount of food was taken out for part of their day and they lost weight. Of course, these studies trickle their way into the mainstream and all of a sudden it's a great diet to do. It reduces inflammation, promises you all these great things. And all you have to do is cut out a couple of hours of the day that you're going to eat and keep it to a 5, an 8, or 12-hour window. So the reason we worry about that is, again, it's pretty unnatural. The actual studies show that there is no difference in weight changes or insulin response or inflammation if there's a 10-hour fast versus like a 12 to 14. So essentially, if you stop eating after dinner and wait until breakfast, that's around that 8 to 10-hour fast. That's perfectly beneficial to the body to get rid of dead and damaged cells, to get rid of any inflammation that's in the body. All you really need, again, is 8 to 10 hours. Now, when we have these long periods where it's 12 to 14, I've seen some 18 hours where a patient may not eat. We worry about that because there's going to be changes in blood sugar. The first thing we worry about is a hypoglycemic event, meaning your blood sugar will drop. You're going to get dizzy, possibly faint. And so that's obviously something we want to avoid. It's not good for the body for your blood sugar to drop, because then your body has to naturally rebound it higher, and that can cause stress in the body. The other thing, there's actually several things we worry about, but the next thing I want to talk about is change in thyroid function, especially for women. If our thyroid is kind of like the regulator of our metabolism, how we regulate our food intake. So if there's less food intake, there's going to be less of a thyroid output. So if you're not eating, your body's not going to output that thyroid hormone. When that starts to happen, that body thinks, okay, I have less hormone that needs to be produced. Am I in a famine? And so what it's going to do to survive is to slow down energy expenditure more. So really what you're doing by having these long periods without food, decreased hormone response with the thyroid, less thyroid circulating in your body, which means more fat storage. So that's the second thing that we worry about, is that we want to avoid any changes to your hormones. Now, with hormones being said, again, for women, intermittent fasting can affect your menstrual cycle. What happens when we have when we have inconsistent nutrition, or we have a severe deficit in our caloric intake, our body will start to shut down systems that aren't essential to life. So having a menstrual cycle, yes, it is something that women go through. It is a good benchmarker of a woman's health, is how regular her cycles are. However, if your body is in this perceived famine, having a menstrual cycle is not essential to life. So it will shut off that system, so it doesn't have to put energy into having a menstrual cycle. And that can cause a whole other array of issues as far as estrogen production, how our calcium is moving in and out of our bones. And when we look at that, it's all because of intermittent fasting that these have this ripple effect into that. Another thing we worry about is eating disorders. Studies have shown intermittent fasting can cause eating disorders. Now, you've all heard me say before, there is a big genetic component to eating disorders, but there's also kind of a loaded gun theory that goes with that. So what set it off? If you are genetically predisposed to having an eating disorder, the nutrition gets lower and lower, that part of the brain, that eating disorder part, almost becomes activated and will start to kind of rationalize less nutrition as being normal and kind of the want. Also, if you've ever had a history of an eating disorder, do not try intermittent fasting. It will bring that eating disorder back, or those eating disorder kind of like voices and self-talk back. The last thing to worry about with intermittent fasting is it will affect your workout. Your workout will take a hit if you are intermittent fasting. If you are into, whether it's cardio or weights or both, your body is still burning 24 hours a day. So if you're taking this nutrition away from your body for a majority of the day, then your muscles will just stop. They're not going to tear. They're not going to rebuild. So when we think about the intermittent fasting, like I said, the actual studies show that 10 hours is just as beneficial for decreased inflammation as with the 14, 16, 18 hours are claiming to have. Because truly, undernourishing yourself actually raises stress hormones, which raises cortisol levels. And that's really what causes that overall inflammation and carb cravings and weight retention. So you may have seen things that say, oh, intermittent fasting, you're not going to like crave carbs anymore. Pretty false. When you're undernourished, your cortisol level goes up, you're going to crave carbs because your body's looking for energy and try to kind of overcome that and survive. So that's kind of the cliff notes on the dangers of intermittent fasting. I hear it all the time. Someone can't lose weight, so they do intermittent fasting and they stop losing weight and they do keto on top of it. So it's like, what are you eating? And when are you eating? But really cutting out a big chunk a day of not eating is not going to make you lose weight. It will make you store fat and lower your metabolism because your body thinks it is in a famine. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Any suggestions on upcoming videos, any diets you want us to talk about, any, like I said, good, bad comments. I love time to go back and forth with you guys. So let me know what you think and I will talk to you next week.